Hey y'all, my name is Martin Malelu and I'm a librarian with LA County Library. Today we're going to talk about how solar energy works, and then we're going to do an activity where we cook something using solar power. So let's talk about solar energy. Solar energy is just energy provided by the sun rather than wind or fossil fuels or anything like that. So every single day, the Earth receives enough solar energy to power the entire world 200,000 times. That's a lot of solar energy. But unfortunately, there are some limitations when it comes to harnessing that energy and putting it to use in our everyday lives. The biggest limitation that we face when it comes to harnessing that energy is it's pretty cost prohibitive for people, a normal person, to apply solar energy to their home. So because it's so expensive, the installation process and then storing that solar energy to use, because it's so expensive, not very many people have been able to use solar energy in their day-to-day lives. The type of solar panels that we're probably almost familiar with are called flat plate panels. And those are the ones that we've probably seen the most often on top of buildings. The way they work is they collect the sunlight and the heat from the sun, and they use that energy to heat air or water, depending on what kind of flat plate heater it is. And then that air and water, or air or water rather, is circulated through a building. So it is essentially a solar heater for the building that it is attached to. Another pretty common type of solar collector that we've seen is called solar cells. And solar cells are what you might see in a solar powered calculator or a solar powered watch. So those are also a pretty common solar collector that we've seen. All right, so the activity that we're going to do is we're going to create a solar oven that you can actually use to cook something in. So to create the solar oven, you're going to need a knife of some kind. I have this box cutter right here. You can also use a craft knife. I'm going to use this marker. I'm going to use these scissors. I'm going to use tape. I have masking tape here, but you can use duct tape or craft tape, whatever might be around you. I'm going to use this stick. I got a pretty long one because I know I'm going to need to cut it down to size, so I want to start off longer rather than shorter. And it depends, the size of the stick you need depends on your box. That brings me to the box. You're going to need a box with a hinged lid. So I have this shoe box right here, which is pretty good. I am going to need to fill in these holes right here because they might become a problem, but I might also be able to foil over them. We'll see. But you want a box with a hinged lid. It has to have a hinged lid, so a pizza box will also work for this. You're going to need aluminum foil. You're going to need a glue stick. And you're going to need some kind of clear material. So you might not have something thick like this, but cellophane also works well. So if you have like saran wrap or something like that, it will work well. I just didn't have that. I just have this. All right, so that's all you're going to need to make your solar oven. All right, so the first thing we're going to do is we're going to take our box and we're going to cut out a little space right here, and this is where we're going to use the marker. All right, so I'm going to draw where I'm going to cut, and then I'm going to cut it. So I'll draw it and then I'll show you, and then I'll cut it. All right, so I'm going to cut it like that. This edge is going to stay intact, and I'm just going to cut around here with my knife. All right, so I did that. Now I have this little flap still attached to my lid. I got my little flap. Okay. All right, so we got this flap cut out. Next thing we're gonna do is we're gonna line it in foil. All right, so you want the shiny side out. And as you can see, I don't know if you actually can see it on mine. There's a couple spots where I kind of had to overlap the foil because I tore it a little bit. And that's okay. You want it to be as flat and smooth as possible. You can see that it's still kind of wrinkly, but it's mostly flat. So you want to keep it as flat as possible. Mine's pretty good right here, I think. And then once you've done that, you're gonna line the rest of the inside of this box. So I'm gonna go ahead and do that with foil, and then I'll come back. All right, y'all, so you should have your whole box covered in aluminum foil now. Mine is completely covered. On the inside, you want to make sure that you take your time with this. This took me a really long time to do. It took a couple hours, so take your time with it. Make sure you get the whole thing covered. It's okay to have overlapping pieces. The next step is to take the plastic that you have. Yours is probably saran wrap, and we're going to cut it to fit over this hole in the box. If you want to use a marker and put your plastic or whatever down and then trace around it and then cut it out, that's probably what I'm going to do. That's a good idea. You also want to make sure that when you're doing it, you have some overlap here, because we do need to tape it to this box. All right, so you're not cutting it the size of this small hole. If anything, you want to cut it the size of the whole box. All right, so let's go ahead and do that. If what I just said doesn't make sense to you, hold on. I will be right back to show you what it looks like. All right, here's how I've traced my thing, and I'm gonna go ahead and cut it out now. All right, I've cut it out. I've erred on the side of larger, so I cut around the outside rather than the inside, because you can always make things smaller. You can't make them bigger again. All right, so I'm gonna tape this to my box. Hold on just 1 second. I'm gonna get it done, and I'll show you what it looks like. I'm using masking tape for this. All right, so I taped all around there. I've got this clear plastic here now. Basically what this is gonna do is this is gonna help keep the heat in. So while it lets the light through, it's gonna help insulate the whole box a little bit. So whatever you're cooking is gonna cook a little bit faster with this plastic here. And now let's go ahead to the next step once you've got this done. Okay, so the final step in putting this oven together is to place your stick. I know that at the beginning of this video I said I was not going to use a craft stick, but after I got to this step, I realized that a craft stick was gonna be my best bet. And that's a cool thing about science and doing projects like this, is you can kind of figure it out as you go, and you learn and you adapt. Those are all important skills, right? So I did end up using a craft stick. Important part of this is you're gonna measure twice, cut once. All right, so I figured out where I wanted my craft stick, and then I placed it here, and I marked right there, and I marked right there, and then I took my knife and I made a little slot in each of those places, put some glue in there, and then stuck my craft stick in there. So now it's pretty secure. And you want it to be pretty secure. You want it to hold this part up. I have it at this angle because I wanted to choose, I don't know what degree this angle is, but I wanted to have it not at 90 degrees because the sun needs to hit it and reflect down, right? So you want it at an angle where the sun can hit it and reflect down, so you don't want it too flat, but you also don't want it too high up. So kind of eyeball what you think a good angle will be for the sun to hit your reflective panel right here, and shoot that sun into the box to cook the food we're gonna put in the box. So now mine's all dry. So now when I'm ready to put food in it, I'm just gonna open it up and I'm gonna put my food in it. So let's cook something. All right, I just put my oven outside to cook some cookies. I chose these particular cookies because the packaging says that they're safe to eat raw, and I felt like that was an important thing to do when choosing what I wanted to cook in my oven. I also considered maybe making nachos and melting some cheese on some tortilla chips or making some s'mores. But I wanted it to be something that I could eat even if it wasn't thoroughly cooked. So I wasn't going to cook meat or eggs or anything that might make me sick if I ate it undercooked. All right, so it's been a number of hours. I think my cookies are done. I did poke them. You can see in the middle that I did poke them. They are crispy on the outside and soft on the inside. It took from around 9:30 in the morning. It is almost 3 o'clock now. I think I could have pulled them sooner, but I wanted to give them a little bit longer just in case. So let's try these cookies. They're probably not going to come out very well. Ooh, they are still kind of mushy on the bottom, so they could use a little bit longer. But let's try it. Yeah, it doesn't come out very well. It's warm all the way through. I think with a little bit more time, they would be cooked thoroughly. And if I had more time to set them out in the sun, I think if you do something like make a s'more or melt some cheese on some nachos, it won't take quite as long. One thing I could have done to make those cookies cook a little bit more evenly, like get a little bit more solid on the bottom, is to prop them up in the oven. I would have had to adjust them every now and then, which is fine. As they got bigger, I would have needed to add more supports in different kinds of ways. But then the sun and the light would have reflected, or rather the sun and the heat would have reflected onto the bottom of the cookie and cooked it a little bit more thoroughly rather than just baking it on the top and then leaving the bottom kind of mushy. But if you're doing nachos or a s'more, you don't have to worry about that because you just need that direct sunlight. So I do recommend starting with maybe nachos or a s'more. I also had to adjust my oven throughout the day. So when the sun changed, I needed to move my oven to different locations. As you can see in the photos, I had to move it around quite a bit just to make sure that it was getting sun and it wasn't stuck in a shadow. And you might have to do that as well because the sun does move as the earth goes around it. The position of the sun in the sky changes throughout the day. I hope you had fun making your solar oven, and I hope that you enjoyed cooking something in your solar oven. Don't forget to subscribe to this YouTube channel to stay up on what LA County Library has to offer through YouTube. Bye for now.